Welcome in to Daily Faceoff Live, your go-to source for everything hockey. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a Monday, November 21st edition of Daily Faceoff Live. We're streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, as well as, of course, dailyfaceoff.com. He's Mike McKenna, former NHL netminder, current Daily Faceoff analyst. Mike, how was your weekend? Did you watch the Grey Cup?
No, I didn't. I think is that Canadian football? That couldn't be any more off my radar. What I did do was not end up bleeding. I put up Christmas lights and I'm not bleeding, and that's a great win. So I hope you had a fantastic weekend, Frank, because it was good for me.
I actually have a really funny story related to Christmas lights this weekend. I kind of like a couple weeks ago mentioned oh man, I really don't feel like doing it this year. Anyway, I was watching a show on the couch. I must have dozed off or whatever. My wife didn't say anything, went outside and put up all of the Christmas lights. And then was like, I woke up later and she's like, hey, yeah, I did the Christmas lights. I'm like, what? She was up there on the ladder stringing the whole thing. And I was like, this is amazing. Thank you. So a very nice surprise to wake up to on a Saturday afternoon.
That's incredible. I can't say that would ever happen in my house. Good for you.
Well, let's throw 2 minutes and 30 seconds up on the clock and let's drop the puck with some hockey talk, including Evgeni Malkin hitting his 1,000th NHL game, all with the Pittsburgh Penguins on Sunday evening. And it was kind of fitting, Mike, on a night that Marian Hossa had his jersey number 81 retired to the rafters at United Center. All the focus is on Marian Hossa. Yet Evgeni Malkin, that's just kind of been the story of his career. He's played second fiddle to Sidney Crosby, second Russian to Alex Ovechkin, and yet he finds a way to steal the show, scoring a goal in his 1,000th game. And man, what a number, what a career, what numbers he's put up. You see the points there, 1,166 in 1,000 even games. That's 17th most among players all time through their first 1,000 games. So he's certainly been quite productive and some really cool and emotional scenes. You see this one here from his son reading out the starting lineup in the Pittsburgh Penguins locker room, a surprise by the Pittsburgh Penguins who flew him into Chicago just for this occurrence. What's really awesome, Mike, is to see the emotion here from Evgeni Malkin. He gives his son a hug. The kid's crying. Nikita, he's crying. Pretty amazing stuff.
It's awesome, man. I think back to my favorite memories when I was playing and, looking up after games to say hi to my girls afterwards. I'd always wave to them, Frank, and it just kind of reminds me of that special, connection you get. This is really cool what we get to do as pro athletes, and it was great on the Penguins to bring in Evgeni's son to read that lineup card.
Yeah, and also really cool to see the Pittsburgh Penguins mimicking his stretch. You see them just, 20 windmills on the ice there. Love to see it, the scissor stretch. And, they did this with Sidney Crosby and his unique pregame routine, but all of them doing it on United Center ice. Pretty awesome night for Evgeni Malkin, a guy that, as Matt Larkin wrote on dailyfaceoff.com today, Mike, is probably one of the more underrated players ever to play, not in the NHL's top 100 for their 100th anniversary. Yet he's a guy that just continues to produce no matter how many games he's missed.
For sure. I just love how synchronized this stretch is. And the problem is I'm never going to forgive Evgeni Malkin for ruining my first NHL start, Frank. He took over in the third period, scored late, then scored in overtime, and my Tampa Bay Lightning team lost 4-3. So congrats on a great 1,000 games, Evgeni, but I'm still mad at you.
You never forget your first. Let's talk about the Hart Trophy and Connor McDavid. Ridiculous Saturday night OT winner for the Edmonton Oilers captain as they knock off the Pacific Division leading Vegas Golden Knights. It was one of those goals that you certainly remember watching and will remember as the season moves along. McDavid absolutely winding through and past everyone to then lift the puck over Logan Thompson. But wanted to ask you this. it's pretty clear, Mike, that at this point, Connor McDavid is running away with the Hart Trophy. Just look at the scoring leaders, look at his impact, look at the fact that he's got 16 goals in 18 games and has found a way to score at a pace that he's never scored at before. My biggest question is, as we are closing in on the quarter mark of the season, who would be number 2 on a Hart Trophy ballot today?
I'm going to go with Nikita Kucherov, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And he's only 6 points back from McDavid, which, I mean, that seems like a lot right now. But you look at the consistency that Kucherov has had. There's only been 3 games this year that he hasn't registered a point, Frank. He's had 9 multi-point games, and he's been healthy. You know, we almost forget over the last couple of years with all the injury problems that Kucherov's had that he just wasn't there physically to be able to perform unless it was the playoffs, it seemed like. So he's at 28 points, 13 of them have been on the power play, so he's been really diverse. And Tampa's been so good in the last 10, 12 games, Frank, that they're trending upward. I don't see Tampa losing the stride that they're on right now. I mean, really for Kuch, the only thing is he doesn't kill penalties, but that's never been a negative for Hart Trophy voting, it seems like. So he'd be my pick. The other one's Erik Karlsson, but he's not on a playoff team. So maybe you got somebody else that you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the guy that just falls off this list in terms of points, and it's Jason Robertson with the Dallas Stars. You know, I had lots of question marks heading into this season about, you know, missing the bulk of training camp and the year that he had last year. Would he be able to replicate that? He's not only replicating it, he's taking it to the next level. He's got 12 goals so far in 18 games. That means he's on pace for 55, someone that scored 41 last year and has just, I think, really changed my perception of this Dallas team. Roope Hintz is a monster to play against. They're a really good team and efficient getting out of their own end. And I think he's highlighting, you know, sort of pulling this team towards the top of the standings in the Central Division, and someone that, you know, watching his year and watching him continue to grow, I think I got this Stars team wrong. I thought that they were sort of in the bulk of the mismatch in the middle of the Central, and they've clearly risen to the top at this point. And the way he's playing, the way some of these other guys are playing, even in fact, the way they've gotten some production from Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, that I don't see any reason why the Stars couldn't be in the thick of things in the Central when it comes down to determining a division winner at the end.
I don't either. That's why I picked head coach Pete DeBoer to win the Jack Adams. I thought that this club had the talent. They needed some direction, and they've got the young pieces. You said it. Hintz and Robertson, incredible, man. And they're really bringing Ben and Seguin right back into it. They've been a great compliment. Pavelski's been good. They've gotten great goaltending. So Dallas looks really strong.
Yeah, I'm going to push back against your Nikita Kucherov, too. I just think there's too many games where he looks disinterested. The problem with betting against Kucherov is that even in games that he looks like he's got absolutely nothing going on, he finds a way at some point to, you know, have one incredible shift and do something that no one else on the planet can do, it seems like. So will be interesting to watch this Hart race unfold, if we could even call it a race at this point at the quarter mark of the season. Let's talk about Shane Wright. Interesting situation developing with the Seattle Kraken. We know that Wright has been on the outside looking in at Dave Haxtell's lineup card for the bulk of the season to start. He hit 5 consecutive games as a healthy scratch over the weekend, which allowed the Kraken to send him to AHL Coachella Valley for a little, I don't know, sunshine in the Palm Desert there, where he can get in a conditioning stint. 5 games, maximum of 5 games, and or 14 days, whichever one comes first. And my question for you, Mike, is what are the Kraken doing? Are they getting it right by sending Shane Wright to the AHL?
Well, all this is a punt for me. You're trying to send him down to get a little confidence to bring him back. Obviously, he's going to stick around in the NHL. I think Wright should have been going to juniors to start the year. And I'll give you a little bit of a cautionary tale. Look at his own teammate, Jared McCann, with the Seattle Kraken. McCann came out as a 19-year-old to the Vancouver Canucks, and he wasn't ready. He gets traded to Florida for Eric Branson in a eye-popping deal. I was in Florida at the time when it took place. Okay. And McCann had a rough go in Florida the first half of the year. Comes to the American Hockey League in Springfield. It wasn't great there. Florida had to make it work with him. It took the better part of like 5 years for McCann to really hit his stride in the NHL with the Penguins. And now he's at the point where later in his 20s, pots 27 goals. I worry about this with Wright. Like, I worry if now the Kraken haven't delayed his development. So by sending him to the American League, at least he's going to get a chance to play, Frank. At least he's going to hopefully be able to dominate. That's not a guarantee. To me, I just think from the start that this was mishandled. But now the Kraken have to make the most of it. And this is the right play. You just hope that when he comes back to Seattle, he actually gets a chance to crack the lineup.
I think the unfortunate part for the player is that the AHL is exactly the right place that he should be. probably did a little bit more in juniors than most. Obviously, with the year that he had, it wasn't quite perfect, and I still think there's more for him to attain going back to Kingston, especially since he didn't absolutely light the OHL on fire. But the truth is, the NHL is not a developmental league, and the AHL is probably the perfect in-between spot for him from dominating in the OHL to then being a guy that's on the sidelines more often than not in the NHL. And they just don't have that ability. It's like sort of the benefit now of drafting a European player. You see Slavkovsky and the options that the Montreal Canadiens have with their number 1 overall pick. It's almost like if you end up in a spot where all things are equal between two guys, you'd rather pick the European player because you know that you can control him a little bit better. I think that's probably not the way that it should be. I've been saying that for years and writing about the idea that the OHL-CHL agreement probably needs to be reworked and changed in NHL teams' favors. There's lots of different ways to do it. One easy way is just to allow one exception per year where a team could send a player that's 19 to the AHL for the entire season if they wanted to. They can do it. They just have to get in the way of a CHL agreement that's been long-standing with the NHL supporting major junior owners for a long, long time. Let's talk about the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They square off on Monday night. And with the lead that the Boston Bruins have gotten out to in the Atlantic, an 8-point cushion over themselves and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you look at this Bruins team that has absolutely torn through the NHL to this point, 16-2 run. You see all the categories that they rank first in, both goals for and goals against per game. They've been absolutely ridiculous to start this year. But is there a team that in the Atlantic that can catch Boston? And if there is it Tampa?
Tampa's got the best chance here for sure. There's 3 clubs that I think you'd think about. Like, let's say Florida. Okay, they're not getting defense or goaltending. Their special teams are a mess. I don't see the Panthers challenging the Bruins. So you get stuck with either Tampa or the Toronto Maple Leafs. And when you look at the Maple Leafs, can they score? Yeah. Can they play defense? Are they going to get good goaltending? Those are big question marks for me. I don't think that's proven in any way. Tampa Bay, 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're playing stronger. Now they've got Zach Bogosian coming back into the lineup to play defense for them, where that was once a concern earlier this year, especially when Ian Cole was out, Cal Foote's day-to-day. I just find Tampa to be a well-oiled machine. They're getting the offense. They have Vasilevsky as the great equalizer. And is it an insurmountable task to catch Boston? Boston started off hot. They're going to hit a lull at some point this year. And if Tampa continues to chug along like they have, they could be right there with them. But seeing how Boston performed with McAvoy out of the lineup earlier in the year, also missing Marchand, and now with them back in, Frank, I think it's going to be a tough task to overcome them. I think Tampa would be the team to do it.
I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You mentioned the idea, can they defend? Can they get the goaltending? The answer to this point in the season, when you look at the numbers, is yes. They've gotten the goaltending, enough of it at least, to have pretty good numbers in terms of goals against. And when you look at their defense, it's probably not just the 6 guys that are making up that defense core. It's also the way that team plays defensively with the back pressure that they have. I think it's been really strong, not just from their bottom 6, but also from some of their elite stars up front as well. And I wonder if in some way when, Maple Leaf fans sort of pushed against my idea last week of 6 potential replacements for Jake Muzzin, that maybe they're over-reliant on their forwards playing defense because the forwards know that their defense might not be strong enough, if that makes any sense where I'm heading. So I think it's an intriguing debate. I think Toronto is only really beginning to find itself and its stride. I'm still waiting on Austin Matthews to find himself as well. If he does not score on Monday night, that'll be the 20-game mark of the season with 8 goals, which would put him on pace for 34. So 34 for 34 after a 61-goal season last year. I can't believe it hasn't been talked about to this point in the season much more than it has. Let's get to our All 32 this week, and we're going to talk New Jersey Devils. Pleased to welcome back to Daily Faceoff Live. We have a blank screen there, and our friend Bryce Salvador disappeared. Oh boy.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but we have a blank screen.
Yeah, I think it must be on your guys' end because it's all green on my side.
Huh. Okay, well, let's talk to Bryce Salvador. Great to have you back, Bryce, for this All 32 delivered by DoorDash. Bryce is, of course, the former Devils captain and current MSG Network analyst for all the Devils games. And Bryce, when you look at this start for the Devils, 13-game winning streak, it's been absolutely incredible. Did you see any of this coming when you were going through training camp, watching this team closely in the preseason? Was there any indication that New Jersey would be at a spot where they might be able to pull something like this off?
Well, no, you can never say a team's going to win 12 straight and predict that. But what I can say is you started to see some of the pieces come into place a couple of years ago when General Manager Tom Fitzgerald started to add some of the ingredients of a defensive core by trading for Siegenthaler and Graves, which they're tall, they're long, and that back end really started to formulate into arguably the best defensive core in the National Hockey League this year, with another trade adding John Marino and signing Brendan Smith. So from the back end, you started to see some of that come together. And Mike, you would even, agree that the goaltending was just not where it needed to be last year. The Devils saw 7 goalies to have some ice time last year. So you're getting above average goaltending this year. The back end is much better. And quite frankly, Frank, like I look at it also from the off ice perspective of just fresh voices behind the bench as well. And they added associate coach, Andrew Burnett, as well as Ryan McGill on the back end there for defensive coach. Obviously, Andrew Burnett brought in some of that offensive explosion from Florida for the Devils this season, and Ryan McGill, coming from the Vegas Golden Knights, really brought in some defensive structure. Some of those teams, the Vegas Golden Knights, did very well defensively under his tenure. So I think the fresh voices, you're getting goaltending, and then I know, Mike, you had some, choice words to say about Miles Wood being vocal at the Game 2 mark of the season. But I also look at that as a catalyst of this young team showing maturity inside that locker room. I just don't believe that you can have a 12-game winning streak if you don't have a healthy locker room. And so Miles Wood really matured this season as well, and just really becoming that homegrown internal heart and soul person. You can't trade for that. And so you're seeing that growth as well, Frank. And so the off ice, goaltending, fresh voices behind the bench set up the environment to be more conducive to winning. 12 games is great. Everyone's riding that, but nobody saw this coming.
Yeah, and my words on Woods was that you'd just seen a club that had gone through a really tough year, and it seemed like it was panic button. And you know what, though? He's backed it up, and obviously he's taken on that role because he, to me, is the hardest player to play against in that club a lot of times, at least from a physical aspect. You touched on John Marino, Sal, and for yourself as a former NHL defenseman, I would wonder what your take is on him, because I see somebody who the 8 points that he has doesn't jump off the paper. But when you really watch Marino play and see how important he is to the Devils in terms of penalty kill and other situations, I'm curious what you see that maybe made him expendable from Pittsburgh, because to me, this deal has been all New Jersey and gone really well in their direction.
I don't see anything that made him expendable, to be honest. I just don't understand that trade. And so you really look at it from the perspective, and they were making some room for the salary cap. I think they saw Ty Smith, young, controllable asset that could be a roster move, which was proven to be true down in the minors right now. And so I just look at it from that perspective. It's a unbelievable trade for Tom Fitzgerald, general manager of the New Jersey Devils, to just pull that off, and he's been unbelievable. It's one of those things where you didn't know how good he could be. He's come in, he's just accepted the role of being a shutdown defenseman. He's added some offense as well. But I remember watching him in the playoffs last year, Mike, and talking to Mike Sullivan, head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and specifically asking him about John Marino, because in that Rangers series, he was getting abused, and like on the forecheck, the Rangers were coming after him left, every time, like hits here, hits there, and he just was resilient, and he just kept on making the great plays, getting the first touches, going back for pucks, breaking the puck out. And Mike Sullivan said specifically to me, he said, like, Sally, people don't realize how tough and strong he is. And so that just further backs up the surprise that I had when they were able to pull off that trade.
We're in conversation with former Devils captain and MSG Network analyst Bryce Salvador. And Bryce, when you talked about a lot of the additions that the Devils made this offseason, one of them that we really haven't gotten to see that much is Andre Palat. But we had Tom Fitzgerald on our podcast a few weeks back, and he talked about a culture change that's happened with this team. How much does adding someone with some Stanley Cup caliber experience like a Palat help? And when they get him back, how much of a boost is that going to be for a team that's already cooking?
It was instrumental, in my opinion, to bring in some of that winning culture, which was just lacking inside of that locker room. And bringing him in immediately, I think, allowed Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt to have somebody to look up to that has one that can walk the talk, who's been playing with future Hall of Famers, Stamkos, Hedman. And so when he expresses an opinion inside that locker room, people are going to listen. Also, Eric Holla is another guy that they brought in. And from all accounts, he's very vocal as well and has been a great veteran leader. Very, adamant on the guys playing the right way on the defensive side of the puck. And also a guy that doesn't get talked about very much either is Brendan Smith. And I ran into him right in training camp, and he talked my ear off. It's just about culture, about being a leader, and how great it is to be on this team, and him wanting to mentor anybody that willing to really understand what it is to be a professional on this team. And so adding those three guys is really proved to be valuable for this young group. And you have a team, that being the New Jersey Devils, that's the youngest team on average every night coming in, and they're playing like they're a veteran team. You're on a 12-game winning streak, and they're just acting like it's a daily occurrence. They're just coming to the rink, and it's just another game. It's not a winning streak. This is what we do. We want to win, and we're going to respect the game, respect the opponents. And so when you see the youngest team in the National Hockey League acting that way, that just proves to show how valuable Andre Palat, Eric Holla, and Brendan Smith have been. And another guy that goes unnoticed is Sergei Brylin, and he's a coach that they added. He's the eyes in the sky, and this guy's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion for the New Jersey Devils. He was down in the minor leagues as an associate coach and assistant coach, for 9 seasons. They brought him up, and when he speaks, everybody listens. And he's had some conversations to the team I've heard as well, where he's telling all those guys like what it takes to win and how you need to be all connected. And if you're a third or fourth line role type of player or a third pair defenseman, you're equally as valuable as the stars on this team. And so some of that messaging as well from non-players, but with that winning history and culture, Frank, is just part of the whole catalyst here for why this team is going to win more games than it's going to lose. Now, the Devils fans would love for it to continue. They just continue to win all the way out, but we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, the attitude and approach, Bryce, has been incredibly impressive to watch. Bryce, it was so great to connect with you again. We couldn't see you, but it was great to hear you for some incredible insight on the New Jersey Devils. This All 32 segment has been delivered by DoorDash. You see the promo code there at the bottom of your screen. Game Day 25 gets you 25% off and free delivery on your first order with DoorDash. All your favorites and more delivered right to your door by DoorDash. Thanks a lot, Bryce. All right, Mike, it's time for our daily face-off inbox question of the day. Hashtag AskDFO. And this one was submitted by our boy Dale. And he says, should the NHL change the puck over glass penalty to be the same as icing? No line change allowed, no commercial break, no penalty. My answer is no. No, they shouldn't. There should be no get out of jail free card for throwing the puck over the glass. You see it, and it happened time and time again before that penalty was put in place. Anytime you're in trouble on your own end, just lift it right out of play. Way too easy. Guys can do that so quickly in today's NHL. It involves skill to get yourself out of trouble, and it should. And more to the point, I also have talked about this previously, Mike. I think there should be a rule change. You should not be allowed to ice the puck while you're on the penalty kill. You should have to do something with it.
I just think if the puck goes over the glass, I would have loved to given the referee's license to make a judgment call. The problem is you can't make a judgment call, Frank. So I think the rule should stay the way it is. I had a guy I played with in college, Jim Hakewell. He'd flip the puck out every time we were in trouble. Every single time out of the ballpark. This prevents it. I like the rule as is.
Yeah, in a nod to my former TSN teammate, Ryan Rashog, who played for the Kamloops Blazers, I believe they have a drill in practice that they call the Rashog, which involves chucking it out of play as well. Pretty funny stuff. Let's move to our daily face-off Pointsbet daily bet segment with our resident Edmontonian Tyler Yaremchuk, and his duster is, it is something as we've reached the latter stages of November.
You want me to like move my mic in front of it or something so it like blocks it out so no one has to look at it?
You should hide.
Comb it.
Well, regardless, I got the duster. I did go 4-1 on Saturday though, so maybe it's like, a good luck duster or something like that. Anyways, jump into my plays for tonight's NHL slate, which is a really busy one. There's one game I really like though, and it's the last game of the night. It's between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Vancouver Canucks, and I don't really understand this line here. I think Vegas has a really good shot to get back into the win column. They played well in their OT loss against the Oilers. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They're 8-1-1 on the road this season. They've been great. The Canucks, on the other hand, they've been wildly inconsistent, as we've talked about a lot on this show. I think 140 is a mistake, and I'm actually going to go a step further. I'm going to take them in regulation at plus 105. There is a shot prop in this game I like as well. It's Brock Besser to go over 2.5 shots on goal. He's nailed this in 4 of his last 5 games, and he's actually gone over 4 shots in 3 of those games as well. So he's ripping the pill a ton. So I like that one. And a second player shot prop I like this evening is actually Owen Tippett out in Philly. The line is set at 2.5. It's paying minus 150. He's been crushing this so far this season. Scored a beauty goal over the weekend. He's hit this mark in 4 of 5. He's been in the lineup for 13 games this season, hit this mark in 10 of them. So minus 150, a great price for Owen Tippett to go over 2.5. So 2 shot props and the Golden Knights to beat the Canucks in regulation. Frank, those are my 3 plays.
Love the plays. I know shot props are all the rage. I just feel like if you're betting on shot props, you're like in way too deep for me. So I still can't wrap my brain around it, but I understand where you're at.
Yeah, for me, sometimes there'll be a player that I like. Like today, I was really looking at Alexander Barabanov in San Jose, and then I was like, man, am I really at the point where I'm putting my hard-earned money on Alexander Barabanov? And then I went away from it. I went with a few more better-known names.
But you went with Owen Tippett, who is better known, but perhaps still not even quite a full-time NHL player yet. So
But
I
he's
don't know,
crushing
man. You're in deep, but I commend you for it. Thank you for this. That is Tyler Yaremchuk with our daily face-off Pointsbet daily bet segment. That brings us to Mike McKenna with Garbage Time. What's caught your eye? What's caught your attention from around the NHL?
Well, something positive. Josh Levo for the St. Louis Blues has done a great job so far. He had 200 games in the NHL before last season. He went to the American League with the Chicago Wolves for the full year. He was a playoff MVP of that league. He had 29 points, 15 goals in 19 games, leading his team to that championship. And then this year he's getting a second lease with the St. Louis Blues. He's playing with Ryan O'Reilly on the right side. They've had great chemistry. He's got 4 assists in 9 games this year. And I just think that this is a redemption story. Hopefully he gets to stick. He's playing with O'Reilly and Brandon Saad for the Blues, and he's done a great job for that club so far. It's just another reminder to keep grinding when you're out there. You never know what can happen, especially if you end up on a team that's needs some help at forward like the Blues did earlier this year.
Yeah, Josh Levo, he made his NHL debut 10 seasons ago, still at it, and certainly the Blues looking for some chemistry on that O'Reilly line. They really miss David Perron, but the Blues have gotten it cooking again. Thanks to Mike McKenna. That'll do it for today's edition of Daily Face-Off Live. Just a couple days to go until U.S. Thanksgiving. We'll be back with you on Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern. You know where to find us. Thanks to Bryce Salvador, Tyler Yaremchuk, and our head of production, Alex Allard. We'll talk to you on Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern. Until then, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Daily Face-Off Live. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.